Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where we explore ways to get healthy, wealthy, and wise. With a combination of guest interviews and solo episodes, I hope you will be inspired and motivated to become the best of whatever you are. I'm Elle Russ, #1 best-selling author and subject expert with over a decade of helping thousands of people across the globe. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about free guides, masterclasses, online courses, and more. Enjoy the show. Hello. Okay, hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful summer. I want to discuss primal focus and primal distraction. Don't worry, this is not going to be an episode where the entire time I'm convincing you that spending too much time on your phones is not good for you. That we all know that inherently. But I want to get into the nitty-gritty, the nuances behind navigating digital distractions from an evolutionary perspective. Why would I want to bind those two together? Because I want to explore how, as human beings, how our innate problem-solving abilities are being challenged. They are being challenged by this constant barrage of digital stimulus, digital distraction. And I want to get into evolutionary psychology behind our tendencies to get distracted, not always bad. And I think when I get into this and dive deeper, you will have some juicy stuff to reclaim your focus, because this is all about adapting to the modern world. We are in this modern digital age. So we don't want to let it ruin us. We have to adapt to it, but we also want to make sure we keep intact the important parts that are inherent in honoring who we are as a primal human being. All right. Why are we naturally equipped to solve problems? Okay, it may seem obvious that it's crucial for survival. If it's not, here's why. Problem-solving ability is not really a modern skill. It's deeply rooted in who we are. Here's why it's essential. Our ancestors, and I'll just say ancestors equal hunter-gatherers from now on in this conversation. And when I talk about hunter-gatherers, I don't even mean 10,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago was agricultural revolution. People started to set down roots. I'm talking, 25, 50,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers, okay? And we had modern communication like you and I do. They weren't like, smashing rocks up against their head and, that kind of thing. It's not super caveman type of situation, right? So when I say ancestors, I mean those ancestors, not like your direct grandma and grandpa and, great grandma. So one of the crucial survival skills is finding food and water. That's one of the most basic ones. So in the harsh environments that our ancestors faced, locating food and water, that was a daily challenge. It was a daily challenge sometimes. And these resources were not always readily available. So our ancestors had to use cognitive abilities to resource it in other ways, like you're tracking animals, you're identifying edible plants. And again, maybe those animals lead to water. Maybe the plants, again, flora and fauna, what is edible? So on top of identifying these things, then you've got to recall and remember them. So it's not only recall and remember of that red berry made Joe drop dead, so let's not eat that again, but also remembering locations of places, sources, paths of animals. Right? It's like, every this time of year when the sun sets low in the sky, I notice that buffalo keep moving this way, right? So this survival, all of these things involved, required a combination of observation, memory, and then strategic planning. Let's say a bunch of ancestors discovered a herd of animals and they needed to plan a hunt. This could involve a couple of things, right? It's maybe predicting the herd's movements. Again, migration patterns, coordinating with others, perhaps even creating a tool or gathering tools or traps for the animals, like tools to kill or to take apart once after the kill. But again, successful hunts ensured that the group had enough food to survive. So that's what makes that problem solving a critical skill. Building shelters. We needed to protect ourselves from the basics, right? You're not only protecting yourself from the elements, but also animals. And building shelters would have required an understanding of several things: available materials, like what can you use around you, structural stability. Is it raining a lot? Oh, that area is always windy. Let's not do it there because the leaves keep blowing off of our lean-to. The task isn't always straightforward, maybe, right? Because you go, yeah, build a lean-to. But even building a shelter demands innovative thinking. And when I used to go to a camp and then I went back and taught at this camp and we used to teach wilderness skills, we would teach the campers how to make a lean-to to protect yourself from rain or whatever. But if that were a different environment or there were different materials, what if all of the flora around you was poisonous? Well, they're not going to want to put those leaves on top of your lean-to and make it like a poison shack, right? Sometimes the building of a shelter, which seems somewhat simple, is not straightforward. That's why I'm digging into these nuances to remind you of these things you and I don't, we do automatically, but we don't even have to do anymore because we are not in survival mode. But our genetic makeup is no different than that mofo back 25, 50,000 years ago. And that'll become even clearer as I get into some other stuff like dopamine in a minute. So even building a shelter, it seems straightforward, but it actually demands innovative thinking, problem-solving ability. Avoiding predators, right? That's for shelter. Predator avoidance, literally a matter of death. You just can't have a lion coming in there and eating your whole family, right? I mean, or, like learn that lesson from the family in the next, you know, batch of trees over there. So early humans had to recognize these threats. They were devising strategies to evade them. That involves an understanding of animal behavior. Again, maybe that's like, hey, look, they come around this part every time this year. Let's avoid camping out and living there, maybe. That seems like that's their territory. Let's leave it alone. They'd have to learn more about animal behavior, too, would challenge them to discover, observe. You might need to develop defensive tools. And again, creating better shelters. Like maybe you, instead of that lean-to, it's like, we're in lion territory, so maybe we need to go in that cave and block it with a rock. You know what I mean? What if you were an ancestor hunter-gatherer, you encountered a saber-toothed tiger? So you'd have to quickly assess that situation. What's the best course of action? Is it climbing a tree? Do you use a tool that you have on you? Right? Are you running into a cave? Quick decision, problem-solving abilities, crucial for survival. Social cooperation, something people don't really think about, right? We're thinking about like moving ahead, forward, and surviving. But part of surviving is the cohesion and the social connectedness of the tribe, of the group. Clearly very important. So playing a role in social dynamics. So even if that is coordinating a group hunt, that is still a social dynamic. You're sharing resources, knowledge. You might be resolving conflicts, and of course, as any social group. Look, back then, maybe their idea 50,000 years ago, their idea of conflict resolve was not as humane as it may be now to us. But effective communication, teamwork, those things are all still vital back then and now to the group's overall success and the individuals within it. In a situation when resources were scarce, then they would have had to negotiate, right? Maybe they need to like, we got to share food. This is a rationing situation. They've got to maintain social harmony. And these are the deciding factors that ultimately led to modern societies and democracies, governments based on laws. How do we handle conflict? When you steal someone's stuff, when you go kill someone, how do we handle that? Now, back then, they may have just been like, you're banished from the tribe. Or they may have been like, yay, glad you killed them. Again, different set of ethics, perhaps. But again, they're still deciding factors. How do we handle how do we handle it when things go wrong? Changing environments is another one. You have to adapt to changing environments, weather patterns. They migrated in search of better living conditions, possibly through seasons, some of them, right? Depending on where they were. So this required problem solving related to new topography. Oh, this is a new terrain. We're in the fucking desert, mountains now. What? And then new resources around them. So, anytime, this would be in normal time too, but back then they moved to a new area 50,000 years ago, they had to learn which plants were safe to eat. So now that's a whole new set of like, that's just that's just playing like the floor is lava on that one. Like, give it to Joe, see if anything happens, right? I mean, I don't know how the device to the taste tester would be for new flora and fauna and fruits and all of that, but if you came along a new terrain, you'd have to see what was going on. And in that search, our new terrains, climates, resources, animals, bugs, everything that you have to contend with and learn about. So it's like a whole new set of stuff. And then you've got to remember and recall that. Just building your brain, building intelligence, building more accurate, efficient problem solving abilities. So these problem solving abilities, these problem solving skills and abilities enabled them to thrive in diverse settings. All right. Obviously, problem solving abilities are vital for navigating all challenges early humans faced and same now. Our evolutionary wiring is not designed to handle problem solving amid constant distractions. It obviously we had some distractions and we had the ability to deal with that. We didn't just shut down if there were distractions and we had to focus. But that still wasn't the regular order of things. You were able to think and problem solved in a heightened stressful environment, but you weren't distracted all day long. There were so many opportunities for prolonged focus on one task, one thing without being distracted. Like, can you imagine? Like, I mean, they'd be hunting. No one's like, hey, boo boo. Like, no one's popping out of the bushes trying to distract them. There might have been natural distractions, but again, they were focused on that thing and able to focus on it without being distracted. Therefore, more successful. If they had been distracted like we are now, maybe they would have never eaten and survived. Then we have the impact of technology in our lives. I love technology. You do too, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. So that's the reason we're connecting. It's brought about incredible advancements, achievements in all sorts of areas. But the average American spends like, I don't know, 28 hours a week watching TV. It is explosive. We are exposed to an explosive and overwhelming amount of information. This is a constant influx of digital stimuli. And it leads to information overload. It can make it harder to process and prioritize tasks and get shit done. Just consider the sheer volume of information we're encountering every day. It's like thousands of words everywhere we look. It's probably equivalent to like 15 textbooks, right? I mean, this is an overload. It leads us feeling, we feel stressed afterwards. We're unable to focus on what's truly important. Now, here's the thing. Our tendency towards distraction does have a deep evolutionary root because in primal times, being alert to new stuff was also crucial to survival. So we have a tendency towards distraction that has deep roots. And let me get into this and bear with me because I really think that this might shed some light and make you feel a certain way. We have to operate with distractions. That is a tool we have. How many we're throwing ourselves is probably way more than we're designed for. That's the point here. So when we react to new stimuli, that heightened state of awareness, that allowed our ancestors to quickly respond to threats. So it definitely played a fundamental role in them being able to procreate, move on, navigate a dangerous, unpredictable world. And here's why. It was essential. Detecting predators and threats. A new environment. If you hear something new that you've not heard, you're being alerted to new stimuli, unusual sounds, movements, all that kind of stuff. That could be the difference between life and frickin' death. So that vigilance and being attuned to different distractions and distractions in general enabled our ancestors to detect and evade predators, maybe before it was too late. So yeah, it's like the rustling of leaves. Maybe there's some noise that might indicate something lurking nearby, whatever that might be. But early humans, our ancestors, hunter-gatherers, had to constantly be on the lookout for this stuff. So if you can look at it this way, looking for new stimuli and being primed for a distraction to come in is evolutionary. It makes sense. finding food and resources, all that stuff. So if you are alert to the new stimuli, that would be essential for finding food. You smell something new in the new area as a hunter-gatherer. Maybe it's the change of the appearance of fruit on trees that lets you know. Maybe it's, you know, tracking the scat of animals to provide clues about the environment and locating nourishment. Not just them maybe as an animal, but where they might be going. Are they going to water? That's nourishment. Are they going to something else? Is there, seeds in their scat? Like these are the awareness, ancestral awareness moments. So all of this allowed our ancestors to seize opportunities, essentially is what it was about. It was about seizing opportunities from moving forward for hunting and gathering, maybe before competitors could even get there. Because if you were more attuned to environmental factors, and you're like, oh, there's that apple tree. I smell that. Right? Like, I remember that blossom smell. That's some oranges. Let's go get that. You get my drift. So when you have an awareness around you of nature, you have an advantage as a hunter-gatherer. Social interactions, no different than before when I gave that example. Being attuned to behaviors and expressions, that can help people create bonds because, you have a tribe, you have a group. What if you notice a subtle change in someone's mood or behavior? Not only could it indicate probably illness or something like that, but it might indicate something that could signal an impending conflict, or something positive. It could signal an impending alliance. So social awareness, which obviously would help maintain like the cohesion of that tribe and group that's traveling and moving and migrating. But it also does for you, any kind of group you're in. You know how it is. It's like you can sort of palpably feel the energy coming from someone, a mood or a change. We're attuned to this. So this awareness helps us with social interactions. Shifts in weather patterns, another random one we don't really think about because we've got like weather apps. But shifts in weather patterns, availability of water sources, these things would have required immediate attention. And you need to be on alert for this, right? Because now we may see that the sky is dark and gray and we go inside, or we are in a car, or we have an umbrella, or we just can walk inside anywhere. But then it was about ensuring survival. So the sudden darkening of a sky or the feel of a severe temperature drop, that could signal an approaching storm to them. They'd have to be alert to this stuff in order to plan. Because you'd be like, oh, I remember when this happened last time. We need to build a shelter. Let's put away the dried meat. Let's write, all these things that we're preparing for this impending weather thing. But we don't need to go into too much of that preparation anymore because we are not sort of surviving from rain. I think enhancing cognitive development is important here. It's one of the most crucial components because the need to be alert the need to be alert to new stimuli, that contributes to cognitive development. It's the brain's ability to process and respond to new information and able to respond to it quickly, efficiently. That's just a key factor in human evolution. So even a hunter-gatherer, like if they were faced with a novel, new situation, a new scenario, could be encountering a new type of plant. Maybe they had to quickly learn and remember whether it was a threat or a resource. And so that constant learning and adaptation, that sharpens your cognitive abilities. And of course, it also ensures survival. And I would say, even though then it was more of a physical survival, I'd say to you now that the way we can relate it is that's more of a surthrival, like it's supporting us thriving in this modern world. And here's an evolutionary perspective on alertness, because obviously our brains are wired to seek out and respond to new stimuli. Okay, so that right there, just our brains are wired. They're literally wired to seek out and respond to new stimuli based on all the things I've just told you about our hunter-gatherer ancestors. This thing I'm talking about is known as novelty seeking. So and this is specifically linked to the release of dopamine. And if you don't know what that is, it's a neurotransmitter associated with reward and pleasure. So back in old-timey primal times, this whole response mechanism of like novelty seeking, it was advantageous because it encouraged exploration and it also encouraged quick reaction to the changes in the environment. So the dopamine releases this pleasurable sensation that then reinforces the behavior of staying alert and curious. And of course, this ensured that our ancestors remained engaged with their surroundings. But how disengaged we have become. They had to be engaged, continuously seeking out new information and adapting. So let's look at the modern implications. While the immediate threats are gone, we know that. We're not, hiding from rain often or worried about it. We don't have to search for food and water, but our brains haven't changed. Our brains still respond to new stimuli in similar ways. So this leads to distraction in modern life because we're bombarded with notifications, emails, and other stimuli. So if you really kind of dive into the evolutionary roots of all of these things, I think that can help you manage your own attention, manage your own problem-solving abilities. If you're recognizing your tendency to check your phone all the time, that's driven by this ancient survival mechanism, right? And hopefully then that recognition can motivate you to set up boundaries with technology. I'm personally a huge fan of focused periods of work and silence. I also believe in a lot of rest and just staring into space, staring at the view, being in nature, daydreaming, pondering. That is all primal wonder, but without technology. It's also a crucial component of enjoying your own company. So we need this, like part of our brains need this, but it's sort of being abused and it's not helping us the way in which we are using it. I believe focus, concentrated periods of time is more primal, even though we do have to multitask and like be in like, oh shit, quick reaction. I'm getting distracted. I'm hunting. Oh my God, there's like 10 buffalo running towards me. I'm about to pick the last blueberry. Am I going to make it to the next tree before it fucking gourds me open with a, you know what I mean? Like these are not our concerns anymore. Most of our time was focused, peaceful, right? There were hours probably per day or even days on end, depending on how bountiful the tribe was, where they were, right? Maybe there were days on end where they were starving and suffering and struggling and rationing. Because here's the thing, like with hunting, if you're not focused, you're going to miss it. Yeah, people aren't eating. So it's like you're on high alert. It's single focused. And you might have planned before with the other hunters, but when you're in it and you're surrounding a herd and you're trying to figure it out, that's all that one track focused. You really can't have a shitload of distractions. So now just you can like take it over to your life. What is not being successfully achieved in whatever you're doing because of this? What's your hunt that is being distracted? Do you need to undistract yourself from your hunt? I find it's important. I will put the phone on silent. I don't give a shit who's texting me. No one's going to die. If I've got the, do not disturb, if there's an emergency, someone will call me a bunch of times. I'll get it from the right person. I don't need to know anything else other than immediate problems, which usually there aren't any. We've just become inundated. We're overloaded. You have to make a conscious decision to get back to kind of primal focus, primal living, and primal distractions, being more in tune with your environment. It's like when you hear the ding of a new text message, your brain releases a small amount of dopamine. It's like drawing your attention away from your current task. And then this continual cycle of distraction, because you want that dopamine hit, can make it difficult to stay focused and productive. So I don't think we're doing well adapting to this life, and you might need to consider your own adaptation to modern life with technology. We know the consequences of constant digital use. It's got detrimental effects on our brain. It can shrink the areas of our brain responsible for critical functions, decrease concentration, impulse control, higher anxiety, usually a higher likelihood of developing attention deficit disorders and issues. There was an article like a decade ago, I forget where it is, but it showed brain scans of digital addicts, and it showed them to be similar to those of drug addicts. That really suggests that our digital habits are significantly impacting our mental health, but cognitive abilities too, in bad ways. So if you want to be smarter, brighter, lighter, more focused, more productive, more successful, more and happier, you got to get more into primal distractions, primal focus. You got to clock out. You have to turn the phone on silent. You have to be uninterrupted. You have to notice, are you constantly looking? People are looking for distractions. Again, are you just out of control with your primal dopamine novelty reward system? You can mitigate these effects. You can dial it back. Do you have the TV on in the background while you're working or music? Maybe you need to cut it out. Try working in silence. When's the last time you went outdoors and played in nature? Maybe you need to do that. Sunshine, nature, of course, all of that good primal stuff counterbalances the effects of this. I'm in nature every day. I feel it's really key. And I'm on the computer a lot. I do consume digital stuff, but not as much as most people. I have a great boundary with being away from it. And I feel pretty primal. I'm not addicted to my phone. It's actually the opposite. I'm more inclined to not want to engage in technology because I like the way it feels to be away from it. And life is really good. So maybe you need screen time trackers and notification blockers. Maybe you need to make a more conscious effort to engage in person with people. Eye contact, face to face. Maybe you need to get better just hanging out and enjoying your own company in silence, staring at a tree. Just allowing yourself and your mind to wander like we would have back in the day. We had a lot of time to ponder. Maybe you need to turn off the phone while you read. If you're feeling addicted, if you're feeling distracted, if you're unhappy in some area of your life and you're feeling like you're all over the place, you just really got to look at your digital stuff. We've all been through it. I went through a period of phase where I was like, got really addicted. And I had to, it was a moment, it was just like, I was addicted to news for a second. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I never even used to watch the news like ever, or like look at the news. So I just got into this thing and I was like, okay, I've got to draw some boundaries around this. Like maybe I don't hear it anymore and I can just read it. Maybe a headline is enough and I don't need to click on the article. But one of the things I did is I waited. Like I was like, why am I waking up and going directly to this? I never used to do that. So when I went through this weird addiction technology news phase, I was like, oh shit. And I had to make a conscious effort. Like I'd reach for my phone and go, no, 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 no. You can have your cup of coffee. You're going to sit and look out the window. We're going to ponder life. We're going to go through our intentions. Like we're going to go through the morning routine, back to the practice. And so if you're out of a practice you started, or you're just out of it in general, maybe I need to look at it later. Maybe I only need to read it. Maybe when I put my phone on silent for emergencies, I put on the do not disturb so that if someone needs to call 5 times to get through to me, they can if it's an emergency. Otherwise, if it's not an emergency, why am I waiting for the dopamine hit of the text ding? I hope you just reflect on your digital habits today, and I hope that you consider implementing one or more of these tips or something you've come up with on your own. And if you think someone needs this episode, go ahead and send it to them. I think that when you analyze how we are as human beings, what's inherently within us, and how it related to survival back then, and our success as a whole, as a tribe, whatever member of group we were in, but also as a species, you sort of see where we're getting it wrong. These things are still there, and we're actually dancing in them, but they're detrimental. So work with your primal focus and distraction in the positive way, and let's get out of this. It's not healthy. It's not good. There's a time for it. And I knew when I was having a problem with it, and it is like an addiction. And you got to cut it off. You got to cut it off. So think about where you can cut it off, where you can draw boundaries. And in general, if you need help drawing boundaries, having the confidence and fortitude to move forward, check out my free confidence ebook and workbook under free stuff on my website. If you need to go further, take my confidence masterclass or my ultimate confidence course. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I'll see you next one.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this show, I would so appreciate you leaving a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about partner discounts on amazing products, visit ellruss.com/discounts.